Last time I talked to you, we talked about two words that came to me. My question ultimately is going to be about the fear of love, and I think there's some resistance that's
the fear of
attached to
what?
that. Of love?
Yeah.
Okay. So the two words were love well, and that was after, months of being quiet, forced quiet. And then there was no how-to to that, or why, or anything. So I sat with that again. And I heard you in a CD say, redeeming love, and that registered. I went, This is the movement. This is the movement.
Yeah.
That's what Christ came for. That was the teaching.
That's right. That's what you came for.
Yes.
And I and all of us,
yes.
We're all a product of that redeeming love. Here we are
yes.
to redeem all the misunderstanding of this lifetime.
Right. If one could live redeeming love, you wouldn't even need forgiveness. It would be a moot point.
That's right.
Wouldn't even need it.
You don't need it, unless you do.
So then I heard you on another CD talk about the fear of love being tied to unworthiness or not feeling good about oneself. And I'm taking it out of context, but I have many moments of clarity now and clear thinking and much more than before, but there are those moments that slip in still of not feeling good enough and knowing that I have fewer years ahead of me than behind me, and wanting to live this redeeming love as much as possible in the time left. Mm-hmm. So when you said that there was a fear of love tied to that unworthiness, I think I got it sitting here, but...
Often there is.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, it's only pay attention to it if it seems relevant to you, as I always say. But I think my experience is with vast majority of people, especially in Western culture, in our culture, that sense of unworthiness can be very persistent.
Right.
It can survive quite powerful spiritual awakenings, actually. It will be mortally wounded by them, but it doesn't mean that it all goes away at once, right, necessarily. Sometimes it does, but sometimes there's bits of it that stick around. And that sense, it runs very deep in our culture of unworthiness, right? That runs very, very, very deep, because, of course, part of our heritage are the various... we have a culture that's based on various forms of original sin. It's like, your birth is, you are here because of a mistake, right? And that informs a big part of our Western tradition and our Western culture, even if we kind of cast that off at some point in our life, even a very young point of our life, even the people that I've seen that have casted it off, it doesn't mean that it's not still actually at some very subliminal level in the system. That is why I think there's no doubt, there's no mystery that part of our Western heritage is this heritage of a kind of the image and the story also, but more importantly, the image and the experience of a redemptive love. You don't get redemptive love, in Buddhism. They don't need redemptive love because they don't see human beings as essentially flawed. They see them as confused and caught in a kind of delusion. Our Western culture, even if we've bought into Eastern teachings and we think we've changed our mind about all this, very often that sense of flaw runs very deep. And so a sense of compassion that we might get, say, from Buddhism often doesn't really do away with that sense of even very hidden kind of unworthiness. And I think that's why part of our tradition in the Western tradition is a kind of redemptive love, because a redemptive love is a different quality than compassion. A redemptive love comes from, and of course a redemptive love, I know in our founding stories, it comes from outside, and it has a savior and all that kind of stuff. But that redemptive love is also, that's us also. That's you and me and our essential nature.
Okay.
And it's bringing that redemptive love to the unworthiness, you see.
Is that just cultural then, that one wouldn't be even concerned with redemptive love if one didn't come from this culture?
No,
okay.
They wouldn't need it.
Okay.
They wouldn't need it. And that's why in some cultures you don't really find it. They have their own hang-ups. Every culture has its own hang-ups, right? It's its own, it's everybody, they all have their own explanations why there's this sense that there's something not quite right. Mm-hmm. Do you all know what I mean? They all have that. If you go to India or Asian country, it's because of karma. That there's something not quite right. It's because of ignorance, misunderstanding, the forces of Maya. That's why. You come into the, more Western ones, and why is things not quite right? Well, you see, because two human beings screwed up and they pissed off God really early on, and we're of their nature, and so we kind of are partaking in that, so something wrong with us. They're all stories, though, right? They're all stories that are trying to make sense of a universal thing, which is, why doesn't it just, there's something about my life that just doesn't feel on the mark. Do you know what I mean? Just what is that? Why do I feel that way? And so we have different ways of describing that. Of course, the consequences of those descriptions are profound.
I think I was looking at redemptive love as the movement outward, the down and out.
It's down and out, but it's also down and in.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
So I should be looking beyond that? Is that what you're saying?
Beyond what?
Beyond redemptive love?
No.
Okay.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you just receive it through the entirety of your being.
Okay.
You receive it through the entirety of your being. This isn't. I think this is these, it doesn't matter one whit to me personally whether these kind of religious stories are true or historical or that. I don't care if somebody believes they are or they aren't. It doesn't matter. Essentially, what they're doing is they are communicating to us about aspects of our being. Redemptive love isn't something we manufacture and we create out of some story. The story comes from redemptive love. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Comes from somebody actually experiencing it, realizing that intrinsic part of human nature. So when the story helps you reconnect with the redemptive kind of love, that kind of love that reminds you, that shows you that where you feel that everything that you might have thought or felt was wrong is washed away.
So if the redemptive love goes through and through, one would look at those ideas of coulda, woulda, shoulda, whatever differently, because then there would be the redemption of the self, and then the fear of the love goes away, because
find out.
That's what I'm
could be
feeling.
Follow it through.
Okay.
I mean, I can speak in generalities, but each person has their own. You can have a life circumstance where you can have life circumstances that seem where you gather the message or you create the idea given your experience that to love isn't safe. People can have experiences of loving, but then they realize, oh boy, I really felt a love for somebody that either it wasn't safe to love them because they were not nice, or it was undependable because they disappointed me, they didn't take care of me when I needed. There's going to be all these. It's not all just essential unworthiness or reasons to mistrust love. There are essential reasons, what we've been talking about, but those also get justified.
I think I was
in
trying
one's
to
life.
understand what you were saying in that context.
Yeah,
how
in that
they were
context,
related.
it was essentially
Okay.
the essential sense of that there's all those ideas about it's a resistance, right?
Yeah.
All forms of unworthiness are resistance. I'm unworthy because I'm resisting this. I'm resisting this feeling. I'm resisting that. I can't believe I think that thought about my neighbor. I can't think that thought. I must be awful. You're resisting having the thought. Drop the resistance and it's like, well, look at that thought. I'll be damned. Look what it thinks about my neighbor. And you're not resisting it. When you're not resisting it, you don't tend to act on it. It's not a big deal. And then you see underneath, you see, oh, I'm thinking that thought because I have this underlying belief about. Oh, and that's not true either. Look at that. I never knew that that wasn't true. And that and the love, it can sound like a very intellectual process, or abstract. But when you connect it with the heart is the thing that gets you to consent. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the redemptive love. That's the image of the redemptive love. I know I often repeat this phrase. It's a Bible phrase, but to me it really puts in a very precise way what the experience of redemptive love is, that it's this old theological phrase, God so loved the world that he gave it his only begotten Son. Now, if we don't worry about the story and the history and all that kind of stuff, one can if they want, but if we take that statement and we go, okay, what is that statement showing me about a potential here within my own being?
Exactly.
Then redemptive love is the kind of love that pours itself into anything. It pours itself into you. Why? Because you so loved this, all of this. That part of your essence is pouring itself into your humanity as an act of love. And when you receive that your essential part of your being or your divinity is pouring itself literally into the entirety of your being, all of your human parts, your very, very human parts, that's pouring itself in as an act of love. Well, when you start to experience that, well, that's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you feel the redemption, you feel the sense that all of a sudden everything is forgiven or washed clean or never mattered to begin with.
Place.
Yeah, you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
You feel you can. Oh, and that's different than me trying to be loving or compassionate or kind or hold it or baby it or stroke its head or all of that can be nice, but I'm talking about something more essential.
It's more to the core.
What's that?
It's more to the core.
It's to the core. Yeah, and it's a different expression of freedom.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There's the freedom that says, I want to get out of this. I want to transcend myself. I want to transcend all this. That's a kind of freedom. You can do that. You've experienced that kind of moment.
For a while, yeah.
You can experience that for a while. But since that's part of our inclination, but not the totality of it, part of our true nature, but not the totality of it, at some point, you will also be invited to experience I would suggest an even deeper kind of freedom and a deeper part of your nature, which is the part of your nature which is not simply seeking to wake up from all of it, but pouring itself into it, almost as a kind of sacrifice, because that is what that's an act of love. That's what washes all the confusion, all the pain.
Yes.
You don't just transcend it and get away from it. It literally washes it out of your humanity. your system. Because otherwise you got this split thing going on where you might, people have these awakenings to be in the clear space of awareness, but then they got this human thing often still going on, and the two are kind of like really baffling. You can be in this very clear, wonderful space, but then you got this human thing that still may be in its own kind of misunderstanding or fear, or still have some beliefs running around, and just to transcend doesn't release. Mm-hmm. It's the redemptive part that pours itself back in as an act of love. That's why I say there's those two kinds of freedom: freedom from and freedom to.
Right.
Okay, you're free enough to let go, even though at the moment it often feels like you're going to die. You let go of your life and your body and your mind. Okay, but are you now free enough to pour yourself back into it as an act of love? Not to re-identify, but just so you can completely embody that. That's love. That's where I think the redemptive quality of love becomes a very important image, because it evokes that reality within you.
Yeah, it feels completely different.
Yeah, it feels. And as soon as you feel it, then you understand it, right? You get a different understanding of it. Oh, that's it.
I couldn't even talk about it until I actually felt it to some degree.
Yeah.
Couldn't even talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.